Welcome, fam, to another episode of Good, Bad, and Ugly about real estate with Jose. We got an awesome guest today, Luz Ramirez, and a new co-host, Mando. Let's give it up for everyone. Woo! So, me and Luz are new friends, and I'm getting to know her a lot better. Luz, can you just go ahead and share with everybody, a little bit about yourself and your journey in real estate?
Sure. Thank you, Jose, for having me on. So my journey into real estate didn't start until about a few years ago. Prior to that, I've been in the education world. I've been in nonprofit world and mostly focused on administration. So I'm an administrator. That's what I do. I create, I run programs, I create services, and I'm a very high level integrator. So I love to make things happen. I'm also a visionary, but I usually pair up with visionaries and then they tell me what their problems are, where they want to go, what they want to do. And I'm really good at solving those problems and looking forward and saying, okay, this is how we can make this happen. And then I implement and do. So my journey into real estate has been more, I am my husband's implementer in a way. He got the idea from, he started reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I think I can't even tell you how many people have said, well, that was how I started getting interested in real estate. Right. And so he did that. He read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And then he came to me and said, we need to start investing. I'm like, okay, every time you start a sentence with we need to. Yeah, it's not we need to. It's I end up doing a lot of work and getting things going and up and running. And then he just jumps in, then he takes over and does certain things. But I am always the behind the scenes person. So that's really how it started. It's a interesting story to start out with because our first deal that we made was actually a interesting creative deal. Not your typical creative. I know we are all doing creative financing and creative, deals in the field that we're in and how we met through Owners Club and Sub 2, but a little bit there.
All good.
All right.
I don't even know where. Might want to start from the beginning.
We lost the last 30 seconds, 35 seconds.
Yeah. Okay, I will start over. I don't know if you heard about the creative
your
deal
husband, and you pick up the pieces for your husband,
and then you creative deal that wasn't such a creative deal or not what we're used to creative deal.
Okay, perfect. So our first deal was actually our creative deal. And my husband was an early adopter of Bitcoin. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with Bitcoin, but recently there's a lot of information coming out because the price of Bitcoin has been going up. A lot of people have been skeptical about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. Well, he was one who adopted it early on. And he bought Bitcoin at about $1 or $2 when it first came out. And then it went up to about 600. And he said, oh, wow, I made a return on this. And he sold. And then it went up to 1,500 and he sold whatever the rest of what he had. I mean, that was a great return considering, right?
Absolutely.
But then where are we today? It hit $108,000. I don't even know what the peak has been yet. Anyway, that happened early on. And after it started to go up again and it hit higher, he kind of went, oh man, I need to get my Bitcoin back. So that's been kind of his new journey, is to recover his Bitcoin. So he started buying back. But when we talked about going back in and buying, and he realized that he needed to recover Bitcoin, it was already at $6,000, which, okay, $6,000 compared to what it is now. Now it's not horrible, but it was much higher than what he purchased at originally. Anyway, he started to recover some, and then he read the book. And when he read the book, then he got interested in real estate. And he said, okay, we need to get into real estate. But the question is, how do we get into it? Right now, we don't have really the means to jump into real estate. Well, his cousin had been investing in real estate for a few years now at that point. And his cousin did not jump into the Bitcoin like my husband did. And so they were talking about, okay, how do we make this work for the both of us? And they came to an agreement where a property that his cousin had just acquired it within the previous few months and had kind of not been one that he was really interested in, but he did it to help somebody out. And so my husband about that, and they both agreed, okay, let's do it. Let's look at, let's come to a price. Let's come to, negotiate the terms and what will it look like. And they decided on a Bitcoin and a half for the property. Now, the property at the time was valued at about $75,000, $78,000. And it's an older house and, in an area that probably isn't the best, but it was a good deal for us, and it was a good deal for him. So the Bitcoin and a half at that time was probably valued at about, I want to say about $87,000. So when you did the math, comparing it, because by the time that happened in 2021, the Bitcoin had hit an average of $58,000 a Bitcoin. So when he traded the Bitcoin and a half, his cousin ended up getting about the $87,000. My husband we ended up getting a property that was valued at about $78,000 or so, which was a fair deal for us, because when we purchased the Bitcoin, it really was about $9,000. So we ended up gaining this property for $9,000. He ended up getting Bitcoin that is now valued at about $150,000, and potentially will continue to grow. So anyway, that was our first creative deal and how we jumped into real estate. So then we took the property, we did a cash out refinance, took that money out, purchased our next property, repeated. We kind of did the same thing, purchased another property, rehab, took the money out and bought another. And so that's how we've started our portfolio. And that's how we started our journey in real estate.
Yeah.
So your portfolio, what has that grown to since then?
So right now we have 5 properties, and 3 of those are duplexes.
Okay.
We're looking to grow it more. We're not at that, we're not in that point yet where we can say, oh, we can live off of our properties, the cash flow coming in. No, we're still putting a lot of money into the properties. But we're building little by little. At this point, the last 3 that we acquired were duplexes, but now we're looking to do multifamily. So we're looking at 4 units or more.
Okay. Are these like units all over the country, or are they in your backyard? How are you investing?
They are in our backyard because this is the area that I'm really familiar with. And I've looked outside of our backyard, but it's, if you don't know the area very well, it's really difficult. So here I can tell you, if we go over 3 blocks, okay, this is a good area. If we go over 4 blocks, this is a horrible area. So that I'm very comfortable with. So for now, we've been looking. The other thing is I'm in Rockford, Illinois. And when you've looked at what they're talking about, the up and coming markets and where you should be investing, Rockford hit the number 1 on the list this year. So actually most recently within the last few weeks. And so I am actively looking at properties that I could actually start investing in now, where we know that the values are going to continue to go up, because in the last year and a half, we've actually had a really good upswing, actually last couple years. The property that we currently live in is a custom built duplex. And when we moved in, it was a great buy for us. But what we loved about it was that it has second property that we could rent out. And this property alone, within 1 year, went up in value $100,000. So it's starting to turn around very quickly in this area. So I want to continue this area, but I am interested in investing in other areas if I'm not the person who has to be the boots on the ground, do the underwriting, do all the work. So I would love to partner up on opportunities.
So as long as you're not the iterator, or as they're saying in the No One Left Behind, the rainmaker, right?
Exactly. I mean, I think that there are a lot of areas that I can be supportive and I can assist in. I can help bring money to the table. I can also be somebody who can help guide business decisions and create or develop, opportunities for the business for whomever I'm pairing up with.
So you mentioned multifamily. Are you kind of limiting yourself to like under 5, or have you considered going bigger than that?
No, I'm looking at bigger. I'm actually working on a couple teams. One of the teams I'm working on, we are looking at larger multifamilies. So that would be 60 units or more.
Awesome. I don't want to catch you out there, Amanda. You got any questions before I keep moving?
No, I like that because there's a threshold where you would want to get because smaller multi-families, you still kind of need a property manager in place. You're kind of still doing a lot of that work if you don't have a property manager. That's why kind of that 60, I think, is a good threshold when you can maybe even have a live-in superintendent who can be the eyes on the property. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a good size. I tell you, because I had some prior, I was LPs on 2 multifamilies, a 35 and a 40 unit prior to COVID. And that was kind of one of our dilemmas, that we were right there at that cusp where we can actually have someone on and have someone off. So I think going a little bigger is a safer bet. So you're on the right path.
Yeah. So for multifamily, where I'm looking locally, I know my husband can do the management for that. He's doing the property management for our properties currently. And so it would just be a good fit for us. for him to just be able to kind of, okay, step over, take care of whatever's local. But if we are not local, if we're investing nationally, then I'm looking for somebody else to be able to step in that role.
So you mentioned that you guys learned or decided to get into investing, reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yep.
Was it scary getting into the real estate, for lack of better terms, game? Because I mean, it kind of tells you what to do, but doesn't really give you like a blueprint, if that makes sense. So how did you guys, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Navigate the waters, right? Of acquiring your properties and building your portfolio.
So I am, by nature, I'm a researcher. I love to research everything. And so anything new, I need to research it top to bottom. And that's basically what I did. I dove in and I started reading all the books. I started researching everything. I then stumbled onto Bigger Pockets, which then stumbled onto Pace. And then I ended up in his community. I joined Gator. I joined Sub 2. And then I joined Owners Club. So for me, the more information, the more education you get on the topic, the better you're going to do. And so that was the only answer for me. Yes, this is something new to us, but if I'm doing my homework and we're doing the research, we should be okay. And of course, there are missteps here and there because you learn by making mistakes. How else do you know what to do or what not to do? Well, you make a mistake here and you're like, okay, we made a mistake there, so we're going to do better next time. And everything is just a process of improving upon whatever mistakes you made previously, and then you continue.
And then we just pray that they're not big mistakes.
Or costly mistakes, right? Or costly, yes, unfortunately. Well, we've been blessed that we haven't had very costly mistakes, not in real estate. Our costly mistakes have been in other decisions that we've made. And we're like, okay, well, there goes that. Well, that's a lesson learned.
Right. So you see you have 5 properties. Are all of them the same strategy? And what I mean by that, are they all long term? Have you decided to do like a little bit of Airbnb, midterm rentals? Have you kind of mixed up your portfolio? Or are you strictly like one strategy? How are you guys approaching that?
So we have done only the one strategy. I did look into doing a midterm rental for the property that's attached to our property. It's in a very good location, right behind a hospital. And so it would be a perfect spot for midterm rental for maybe a doctor or a nurse, that sort of thing. It's also set up in a really nice way where if they wanted to entertain, it's a nicer apartment. So one of the things that I did was I did list it with a company when the last tenant moved out. We did a lot of repairs. We really made it really nice. And I contacted a company, I think ALE is the company. I signed up with them. And I waited. And so while I waited for them to contact me and let me know if they had somebody, I started listing the apartment to see if anyone else was interested. On the day that I signed the lease, I literally had finished signing the lease, and then in comes a call from the company saying, oh, we would like to place somebody in your location. I'm like, well, it's no longer available. I literally just rented it out. Well, anyway, they've been great tenants. And he also happens to be a physician who is living there, and they've been great tenants for a whole year. And so, yeah, that I haven't seen a need to go to another option. So long-term rental has been working for us. All the other ones, same thing, long-term rentals. Not because I think that's what we're comfortable with. We know how that works. It's a manageable system for us. Airbnb, I haven't wanted to try. I think there's a lot more that goes into that. There's a lot more with the setup of it. The midterm rental I'm considering. I'm looking at a couple other properties that might be opportunities for me. And then I have thought about the midterm rental because I have a connection with somebody in Owners Club who has a government contract where they are placing corporate individuals into housing. So that might be an opportunity there to pursue.
So just a side note, Furnish Finders has been a better company to work with for me than ALE.
Okay.
Furnish Finders, you can go on their website and they can show you who's looking. You can negotiate prices with people that are actively looking, but you set your standards. And I had no problem filling my midterm using them. ALE, I got a phone call once every 6 months or something like that, so it wasn't very beneficial. I mean, once you're in their system, you're in their system, but I found Furnish Finders to be a little bit more lucrative of a company to have my property listed with. So just a
good to know. Good to know.
thing.
In mind.
So it's funny you bring up government contracts. I mean, that seems to be mean. Ben, I was just talking to Adam, was it last week, about how he's teaming up with, and I'm gonna mess this up again. Is it
Oxford
Oakford?
houses.
See, Oxford houses for sober living. So it seems to be a very up and coming way of strategy, right? To make sure that your houses or your rentals stay full. Um, so one of the things I know about you from Boston, right? Because Pace kind of blasted you out there, is that you are really well versed, I guess is the best way of putting it, in writing or applying for grants, which is one of the reasons why I reached out to you to see how I can learn from what is being told to me, the guru of grant writing, right? Some people that will be watching this episode, they'll see that trying to find money sometimes can be difficult, but if they can find a grant to do it, maybe that helps them get into a deal or start investing in certain types of properties, whether it be in an opportunity zone or provide affordable housing for people. So can you kind of share, well, for lack of better terms, your knowledge in that realm? How would somebody go about writing, or how picking the right grant for what they're trying to do? Is it better for them to write it themselves or find somebody who can write the grant for them? So we'll start there, and then I'll ask questions as I hear you share your knowledge.
Sure. So this is not what I intended to do with my life. And so, you learn to do things because you need to. So as executive director of a nonprofit, a lot of the funding comes through grants. You either get it state grant funding, foundations, private foundations, federal government. And so in order for you to grow your organization, that's one option. And so many of the funds that we received were through grants. The majority of them actually were state funded. And as I transitioned into another agency, which is also a nonprofit, and brought the other agency into it, we needed to grow our programs from what we were offering. So there's a process behind it where you have to analyze what your gaps are, what you offer, what your company or your business does. And then you have to then research and see what is out there that's available to cover those gaps that you have. So as in the nonprofit world, one of the departments that I created was working with the immigrant services. And with that, we have looked at, okay, who is our clientele? What are their needs? And with those needs, what is available out there? So then I will go out there and I will do a search on state departments to see, are there any services available to immigrants? Are there any funding sources available to immigrants? And are there any supplementary or other areas that I can go seeking funding for immigrant services? So through the state, I apply for those grants. Then I look at foundations that might be working with immigrant services and then apply through those. I look at federal government, see if there's anything there. So I do my research. And I find out what do I qualify for as the entity that I am. So in this case, it's a nonprofit entity. If it's a business working in the housing field, maybe you would do the same thing, but you would look for grants that are available to businesses. And it will tell you in the notice of funding opportunity or in the RFP, which is a request for funding, the request for project, they have all these different names for them. So depending on who's putting it out there, that's what you're looking for. And it will actually tell you all the information that they need in order for you to apply for it. So do you qualify? You have to look at the list and say, okay, I am a business, I'm a corporation, I'm an LLC, I'm a nonprofit. These are all listed. Then yes, I qualify. I need to be registered with the city, registered with the state. I need to be registered with the, this area, this group. So it tells you everywhere you need to have a registration completed. It tells you the dates. What are the timelines? By when do you have to submit it? Is there a letter of intent that you need to submit, and by when? Is there a TA session that you need to sit in on or not? Because sometimes you can sit there and go through the process and complete meet all the requirements, but then if you miss the TA session and that was a requirement of the grant, you no longer qualify. So they will give you all the information on that notice of funding opportunity. And your job is to go through and make
sure. Real quick, so
yes.
I'll get the question. So
yes.
What is a TA session?
A TA session is a technical assistance session. Sorry, I apologize for that. Yes.
No, because I mean, even if I didn't know it, I would want to stop you and ask.
Absolutely.
Because maybe somebody who's watching this who doesn't know, and the old saying, right? The only dumb question is one that's not asked. So I want to
exactly.
Make sure
and we live in a world of acronyms, and so it's very
Absolutely.
difficult for us to kind of move away from them when we're used to using them all the time. So thank you for that. Yes, I try to remember that. All right. So yes, the technical assistance session is the opportunity for you to go in and ask any questions that you may have related to this grant opportunity, and whether or not so you can figure out if you actually qualify or not. So maybe in the opportunity you've read through and it looks like you qualify, but maybe there's an uncertainty there and you're like, I wonder if the project that I'm working on or what I'm doing actually qualifies. I mean, it looks like it could qualify, but I'm not 100% sure. So then that's the opportunity for you to ask those questions and get clarification on whether your opportunity would be considered for this application. So the first step is identifying what grants you can apply for. The second step is researching other avenues, other grant opportunities that could be available based on what you do and you offer. The third is looking at the opportunities as they become available and seeing if you're a good match for them. So that's the initial step. Once you identify opportunities that you could qualify for, then you need to make sure that you are prepared to apply for it, because you could find an opportunity that works for you, but you might not be ready as a business, or you might not be ready as an entity to submit an application. So one of the things that in the state of Illinois, there are all these requirements that you have to complete in order to submit an application. So you have to be registered with GATA, which I believe it stands for Grant something Transparency Act. And I can't remember what the A stands for.
I'll look it up and I'll add it to the description.
But we call it GATA, and we all had a training on it. Anybody who was going to apply for a grant for the state needed to take this training, needed to learn how to use the system. So everybody has to submit through GATA. The other thing is you have to have a SAM.gov ID. You have to have a GATA ID. You have to have a UIIE identification number. So there's all these requirements specific to Illinois. If you're going to apply for federal grants, you have to have all these requirements as well that you have to meet for the federal grant process. If you are applying for a foundation, they have their own requirements. So every funder will have their own requirements that you have to complete in order to qualify for that grant submittal process. Okay. So that's the other part of the research that you have to do. And then get your company or business or nonprofit prepared to be able to submit for that specific opportunity. After that, once you have all your ducks in a row and you're ready to submit for that particular entity, then you just have to make sure that you do meet the requirements that they have listed within their opportunity. So the opportunity could be 3 pages. It could be 20 pages. And it will detail exactly what you need. So when you said, can you write a grant yourself? Absolutely. Everyone can submit their own application. Everybody can go through all the steps, make sure that they meet all the requirements, and they can do their own grant application. But not everybody has the ability to be detail oriented. So I definitely say that this is something that a detail oriented person needs to do. You need to be very in tune with what they are asking for, and then give them exactly that. So if the question says, provide us the length of time that your business has been providing these services, then you have to respond exactly to their question. I mean, you could talk about, and say, oh, we've been around for around 50 years and we've provided similar services. And so that's a wishy-washy response. Okay. Right. They're going to look at that and say, okay, they did not answer the question. Right. So you have to be very specific. So when somebody is writing a grant application, you need to make sure it's somebody very detailed, that they are reading the question and answering the question. If they are asking you for 300 characters, you have to make sure that the question is answered within 300 characters, or they want it within 500 words. That's all you get. So you have to answer that question in 500 words. So that question was actually very simple. but sometimes they will ask you very detailed questions where they're asking for a lot of information and they're only wanting you to respond in 500 words. And so that's where you have to be very good at how you tell them the information that they're asking for. So again, not only do you need somebody who's very detail oriented, but you need somebody who has a way with words and is able to summarize, provide, be clear, be concise, and get to the point and provide them exactly that. So those are a couple things that I would say that are very important for grant writing. I know there's a lot more to it, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you give us a good 10,000 foot view. In my career, I tried to apply for grants like that geared toward housing for homeless vets. Mm-hmm. And that's why I asked the question about should somebody write it themselves or get somebody. We had looked at hiring somebody, and I think the company that this particular writer worked for, it was something like $3,000 to $5,000 a month for them to write grants for us. And we're like, that's more than what we're making. So it wasn't cost effective. And then we found another writer who he wrote grants for a military entity. I'll just kind of frame it that way. And he's like, I can help you as long as you're not competing with the entity that I work for, because then it's kind of a conflict of interest. And he goes, and we apply for a lot of federal grants. So I'm not sure if I can truly help you because I can't think of one that you would want to apply for that I'm not already applying for the company that he worked for. So we didn't move forward that way. And as you said, you want to be very detailed oriented to make sure that you answer the question that they're asking you, because I have in the past tried to apply for grants and of course not been successful. And now just by that little bit of information you gave me, I can understand why, because I was doing exactly that, right? Being more broad than I was specific. So if anything, I got that little bit tidbit from this time with you. So, Manny, you got anything before I keep moving forward?
Yeah, I do. Obviously, for me, all this grant talk is all new to me, right? So it's great to be on here just to learn this. I do have a question. As we're on a mission to create opportunities for some of us doing co-living, sober living, these are purposeful missions, right? We're trying to help. You've mentioned, let's say me, I have no experience in grants. I do have buy and hold properties. I don't have, let's say I want to move into some sober living facilities. I don't have any experience in that space. How would I be able to break through, right? Or where do a newbie would start to maybe position himself to get opportunities to maybe get accepted for said grants, let's say?
Okay, so for grants, so you have to look again at what grants are available out there. So you start with what's your area that you're looking for. So sober living is one area. Veterans, VA housing is another area that just actually, I'm bringing this one up because they're going to be offering millions and millions of dollars in grants for VA housing. So this was just published on December 20th. I put it on my Instagram and I said, hey, check this out. So what is going to happen there is that the government is going to provide all this funding and they're going to shoot it out to different entities who have applied for that funding. So you can do a couple things. One, you can apply for it directly through the federal government, which will be really difficult because you probably have never written for a grant before. You probably have not secured a grant through the federal government before. You're probably not big enough to get a grant through the federal government. So the best opportunity there is to wait to see what organizations are applying for funding. Okay. So when I say organizations, it could be your local VA. Maybe your local VA or the VA in your state will be applying for the federal funding, and then they're awarded these funds. Now they need individuals who have housing available for them. So this is now your opportunity to reach out to them and say, hey, I'm a landlord. I have properties. I am looking to house veterans. How can we work together? Do you have vouchers, or maybe you partner up with them originally. Maybe they haven't thought about applying because they don't have housing available. So that could be an option. Sometimes these organizations, they can't even find the place to, they can't even find enough housing. So they're like, well, why would we apply for that? We can't find the housing. Maybe you approach them and say, hey, I have the housing available. I am part of a huge network of investors locally. We have housing available. We would love to partner up with you. Now this is part of going into the application process together. And then that makes their application stronger because they now already have an exit strategy. They have a place to place the individuals who they will be housing. So if they receive the funding, they can place them with you. So this is how you make an application stronger. You do partnerships, you do collaborations. And so when I do applications for our organization, I do look at, okay, I have this project that I want to do. I know where the gap is. Who is going to help me move this project along further? So that I look at who my collaborators could be, who my partners could be. I reach out to them and I say, hey, I'm looking at applying for this opportunity. I know that you do this with this project or with this population or with this that I'm looking to do. Would you want to partner up with me? If I applied for the grant funding, you are my partner on this. And now we move forward. And when I do receive the funding, now you are the person I'm working with to do X, Y, Z. Okay. So that makes the application much stronger. And going in at the beginning is the best way, because then you actually have had time to talk through how you would implement this. What would you do? So me locally, I am looking to house victims of domestic violence and families who are displaced. That's my Mount Everest. That's what I would like to be working on. I have other projects that I'm working on and doing the grant writing, doing my business development, but this is my Mount Everest in regards to housing. So I know if there's an opportunity out there so that I can get vouchers for housing domestic violence survivors. I can get housing for vouchers for housing displaced families. And what I do is I work with social service agencies. So we currently have a couple of our apartments have individual families who were displaced, and they've been placed by social service agencies. So I already have these connections created there so that they can be housed in my properties. I have the properties, they have the clients. So
you learned all that from your research, right?
Absolutely. All that is research. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
So one of the myths or maybe misconceptions or maybe people just wanting to know. So let's say they're lucky enough to get a grant awarded. I mean, is it a loan? Do they have to pay it back? Like, what is the stipulations or terms of being awarded a grant if someone is lucky enough to be awarded one?
So that's the beauty about grants, that grants happen to be basically free money. You get the money, and as long as you're implementing the project that you have submitted for, you get to keep the money. Okay. Now, what does that mean? There are a lot of strings attached to it. Of course, you have to do reporting. There will be reports that you have to do either monthly or quarterly, letting them know what the status is, how you're doing with your program or project. There are indicators, there are outcomes that you submit. When you submit the application, you let them know these are the outcomes that we will be measuring. These are the performance measures that we've put in place. All that gets submitted with the application originally. And then once you get awarded, now you're going to be required to submit reports on those performance measures, or KPIs, which is what we like to call them, key performance indicators, that you've met or you've not been meeting. Sometimes the grants are contingent on you meeting those key performance indicators that you submitted. So if you said that I am going to house 100 veterans in the first quarter, and I'm going to house 250 in the whole year, you have to demonstrate that in the first quarter you were able to house 100, or let's say you are at 75% of meeting that. So you've only housed 75 of the 100 in the first quarter by the end of the first quarter. Then they could either still send you the funds and say, okay, we're going to keep watching and monitoring that you are going to continue housing the total number that you promised by the end of the year, by the end of the grant cycle. Or they may say, we're only going to provide you 75% of the funds. Okay, because you're only meeting 75. So it just depends. It depends on the funder. Each funder is different. In the ones that I have through the state that that I monitor, most of them are for the annual. So if the indicator was 100 served by the end of the grant cycle, they'll stay on top of it. Where are you doing quarterly or monthly? And as you proceed through it, the expectation is by the end of the year or the end of the grant cycle, you've completed the 100% that you submitted originally. Sometimes at the end, if you don't meet your numbers, they will only pay you out the percentage that you met, or you will be required, if they paid you ahead of time, you'll be required to reimburse the amount that you didn't meet. Okay, so those are the caveats based on the different grant funding sources that come out. Trying to remember what else the question was. Oh, okay. So yes, money that you receive, you have indicators that you have to meet, and then what is the other thing? I lost the last point, but yes. I'm sorry. I was trying to remember
I'm like, what did I ask? So
yeah.
I'll feel bad. So I'll kind of wrap this portion of the conversation up by saying, people don't know what they don't know, right? So I'll ask you the question of, was there something that I should have asked you that I didn't, that you think that if somebody is interested in applying for a grant that they should know?
Okay. I think it's important to know that grants are not guaranteed. So if you're going to pursue a grant and you apply for one, that's wonderful. Do all your research, do all your homework, and do your best to submit the best grant that you could possibly submit based on the information that they're requesting. But they're not guaranteed. There are many organizations or entities or businesses applying for the same grants. Oftentimes you can see, well, not oftentimes, always they will list in there how many grants they will be awarding or what the range is. For the most part, they will tell you we're only awarding 5 grants, and each grant will be between $80,000 and $150,000. So that gives you an idea that how high the competition is for this particular grant, and also how much you can apply for. So the minimum would be 80,000, and the maximum is, so already these are the parameters that you should be writing your application on based on that. But then it's a competition. It's very competitive, and don't expect to be funded every time. Okay. Now, how do you increase your chances of getting the funding? Then you hire a professional, somebody who knows how to do it, somebody who already has a good track record of receiving grants, somebody who maybe already knows how to write for grants in the field that you're working in, your niche. That's important. So selecting the right grant writer, selecting somebody who is knowledgeable with what you are doing, or that you do a very good session up front and they get to know what your business is and they get to know what you're doing, so that when they sit down to write that application, they know what you do, what you offer, and then they can combine that with what the application is asking for. What else do you need to know? That this is hard work. It's not easy. So if you hire a grant writer, if you hire somebody to do this work, know that you will have to pay for the work that they're doing, because it requires a lot of work. And the hope is that, yes, the grant will be approved and you'll receive it. But there's always that, the work can get done. You can pay for this work, and in the end, you may not get the grant. Okay. So again, research who you're hiring for this. Make sure that whoever you're hiring to do your grant writing is somebody that has already a track record of success and that is a match for what you're doing.
And I'll just caveat to that, because I learned this when I started applying, is, let's say the deadline was in January, right? And you get awarded, let's say maybe June, then you don't even get funded until September. So you have to understand the timelines of the whole process, because if you're in a project and you're like, oh, I'm going to apply for this grant and I'm going to get rewarded and I'm going to be able to use these funds for, this particular project. Well, if that project needs to be funded in let's say February or March, but they're not even going to start paying out to September, you need to understand that you're not going to have funds from that grant or that particular grant cycle until after it's needed. So you got to kind of plan ahead. It's one of the lessons learned that I had.
Yes, thank you.
My experience.
Thank you for bringing that up. That's an excellent point. The whole grant writing cycle is, it starts early on. The notice is released. There's about a month and a half to 2 months. Sometimes it's only a few weeks for you to actually submit that application. Then there's a waiting period that you kind of sit through. Oftentimes I get grants and I forgot I wrote them. I'm like, oh, I wrote for that? It's like, ooh, great, we got awarded, but I have to go back and look and see, what did I write for? What was I asking for? What was I, now I have to refresh my memory and say, oh, that's what this was for. So there's a while there, because they have to go through the whole cycle of checking in and making sure that you've met all the requirements that you're supposed to meet as somebody who's submitting an application. And then they have panels that will sit there and read through all your applications. everybody's application to make a decision on whether you are going to be funded or not. They score you, and then they tally up the scores, and then the highest scores will be the ones who will get awarded. And then, like you said, the cycle, by the time that they announce it, a lot of time has gone by. So if you are looking to, when we're purchasing properties in real estate, you have to move quickly. So a grant opportunity for you, where you expect funding to come to be able to purchase a project, that's not how it works. You're more looking at what Mando had asked about, which would be like sober living projects or housing veterans. You're looking at maybe finding somebody or an organization or an entity that is applying for these grants in partnership with you, where you know that they're going to be providing you with the clientele for your properties, and the funding will be coming to provide you the rent or the rehab fund, the dollars, or the construction dollars to be able to build. So it's more of a long-term project, nothing immediately. You can't rely on the funds to come in right away.
Awesome. Anything else, Mando?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. So we'll start. So you've been in real estate for a little bit. Do you have any good stories to share, or even a horror story that you've had in your experience?
So good stories. I'll tell you that we've been doing the buy and hold, and that's just what we've chosen to do and locally with my husband. But I wanted to learn how to do creative financing because, of course, I joined the community and I said, okay, I'm going to try all the things. And so I drank from the water holes like everybody does when they first join. Yeah. And I was going to do all the things, because I was trying to figure out, okay, how do I do creative finance? And so after a little while, I kind of went, okay, I can't do everything, but I'm going to try pre-foreclosures because I know somebody who lives near me who is great. Nita Patel is amazing. Yep. And so she actually lives in the Chicago area, and I live close enough that when they were doing a challenge, I joined her team. And she actually taught me quite a bit. And we connected actually almost a year ago during a Thanksgiving event that we had. And I was working on a, what was it? It just kind of happened. It was my brother reached out to me and said, hey, I ran into this couple and they're about to lose their property to foreclosure. And it's a really interesting situation. I know you probably can help her with something. I had no idea. So when I saw Nita, I kind of brought it up to her and she said, okay, let me look at the information, and started helping me with that. There was not much we could do there because this individual was not very responsive, but she did help me with another case. And so the bad case, this is my bad case, was we actually were able to stop a foreclosure for this individual. And she and I were working on this. We signed, he signed a contract with us for us to continue doing the work. Nita paid for the attorney to postpone the court date that he had, postponed it twice actually, and then he ghosted us. And so we were already in the process of moving forward and purchasing the property from him, paying off his arrears. It was 3 days before I knocked on his door. I went to him and he had done nothing, absolutely nothing. He was just a sitting duck waiting for the whole thing to happen. And when we got him to, sign the agreement, the contract, and we moved forward and started taking action and stopping everything, then for some reason, he stopped talking to us. He stopped responding to our messages, our calls. I went to the house several times. Then I ended up seeing a sign, no solicitors, and that's it, cold turkey. Nothing from him. Yes. And Anita was like, okay, we need to get a hold of him. We need to move forward. We can't do this. We can't do that. We've already postponed it. Yeah, I know. Believe me, we're trying. And I kept driving over there. Nothing. We kept searching for siblings, children, anybody we can get in contact with so we could see how we can move this forward. Anyway, long story short, doors closed everywhere. She managed to find the father, drove to his father's house, which was in another town, another county. She met with the father. Turns out that the family managed to find the money to pay for their arrears and keep him in the home. So we had asked him if there was any way that he could get the money anywhere through family or anywhere else. He said no. So he had said to us already, no, I can't find anybody, which is why we proceeded the way that we did. Right. Anyway, in the end, they were able to save the house. He was able to stay in the home. And that was just an experience of, okay, we did the right thing. but it didn't work out for us because of what happened. Now, I felt good because somebody kept his home. He kept his home. He was able to stay in his home. The foreclosure didn't happen, but he could have called us up and said, hey, look, here's what happened. In no way, shape, or form were we there trying to take his home. We said from the very beginning, we're trying to help you. And if helping you means keeping you here, giving you a loan, paying the arrears, and you come up with the money and we sort this out, then you keep the home. If it turns out that we just prevent the foreclosure, we get you out of the home and put you somewhere else, and we end up taking the property and selling it, well, then that's the step that we'll take, but we'll have prevented the foreclosure. So anyway, that is one of the bad experiences, but I learned through that. I was able to learn a lot of things about how to stop a foreclosure, how to work with individuals by door knocking. I was able to learn that it's not something I want to do. So I think that was a good lesson. And so I actually ended up stopping 2 other foreclosures. And what I got from it is I loved doing that part of it. I did not love the rest of it. I don't love the part of you're going to lose your home. We're going to move you out of your home. Now I'm going to take it and we're going to do what we need to do with it. That I know I do not love doing. Yes, I am a real estate investor. So don't get me wrong. I don't love that. I love the feeling of having stopped the foreclosures. And I love the feeling of having resolved it for the other 2 families that were able to stay in their homes. That for me, I walked away with like, wow, that was great. So as I go around looking at possible auctions and foreclosures that, are pending, I sometimes think, okay, do I want to contact them? Do I want to walk up to their door and see if I can help them? And so there are a couple, actually, one in my neighborhood that I've been, thinking about, okay, do I go? But, and my thought is I am going to go because I could help them stop their foreclosure and they might be able to stay in their home. Okay.
Right.
And if they are not able to stay in their home, I can still find a solution for them because I know enough already that I can do that. And I can find the right way to do it for them. And so it's not something in my wheelhouse and not something I really want to do. Like I'm focusing on other types of real estate investing. But now that I know this information, it's like I can't walk away from it. And so that's something that I'm still, looking at doing because, I know how to do it. And I can always contact Nita and be like, hey, Nita, take this one over.
There you go.
Yeah.
The story you told is very close to my heart because I had the same situation. I postponed the foreclosure twice. The owner was an elderly lady in her 80s, in and out of the hospital due to medical conditions. And the daughter was not much help at all, but she was really nice on the phone. And long story short, after spending about 4 to 6 months with them, postponing the foreclosure, they ended up selling their house to another investor.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I feel like crap now. And then the daughter had the nerve to call me because she was renting a place from from a semi-investor, I would say. And the guy was planning on moving back into the house because his family needed him close by.
Mm-hmm.
So she was getting evicted, basically. She had 30 days to find a place, and she had the balls to call me and say, hey, can you use your network to help me find a house? I got 30 days to find a place. And I was like, sure.
Wow.
I mean,
that's pretty gutsy.
I'm here to help people, right? So I kind of I asked her what her budget was, and then I went on Facebook Marketplace and found like 5 or 6 places. Said, here you go. So you need a place. They're right here on Facebook Marketplace. You don't need me at all. So,
well, but you actually guided her, so that's huge. I mean, more than she probably deserved.
Yeah. Again, I'm a man of faith, and I can't just be ugly when other people are ugly to me. But I just found it very interesting that she had enough gall to, after doing that to me, and she's like, really? We did that to you? I was like, come on now, really? She sold her house. It wasn't to me. I was like, whatever. It's all good.
You know what? I honestly believe in karma and dharma. I believe that all the good that you do will come back to you, and all the bad that you do will also come back to you. And so helping out in the end is the right thing to do. Yeah. So that was
agreed.
Yeah.
So, we were in Boston, and during our retreat there, Pace asked us, what do you have, and what do you need? I mean, listening to you for the during this podcast, I mean, you have a lot to offer. So I want to ask you to repeat yourself, because I mean, if anybody wants to know, they can just rewatch the episode. So what are some of the needs if somebody wanted to partner with you and try to help grow your business while also benefiting from partnering with you? What are those things that you're looking for?
So I'm currently consulting for grant writing and also consulting for businesses. So businesses that are looking to put systems and processes in place. They don't have a strategic plan in place, a business plan, basically from the beginning. If they need to create their entity, I can help them with all that and kind of put that mission and vision in place and help them guide that process. I've also worked with businesses where they are maybe overwhelmed. They got bigger than they expected to get, and they've kind of lost track of everything. They can't do their bookkeeping. They can't do, they're like running the business, but the business is out of sorts because they don't know how to really run a business or how to create a team or how to run a team. So I can help with that as well. That's been a big part of my experience for many, many years, is creating teams, creating and developing. So that's my focus that I'm doing. As far as what I can help with, I am looking at doing this as either a client hiring me on for me to do that, or I can also do it for equity. So if I'm working with businesses that are starting out and they're not yet at the level where they can go ahead and pay for a full fee for consulting, I can do a partial fee, and then we can do a percentage of equity based on your business and company growing. So that's one of the things that I'm offering right now. The grant writing, again, that's something that I am doing consulting on. And then whatever area individuals need help with, that's where I will step in. So maybe it's somebody who doesn't do well with research. I can do the research part and then say, okay, here are some options for you, some grants that actually match what you're trying to do. And then you can go on your way and do what you need to do with it. I can also do the grant writing, or I can do the final steps of it, which could be editing. Maybe you feel that you have enough knowledge and you can take it to a certain point and then say, okay, I've written the application. I've got all my requirements met. My last step would be I would take that and I would go through and edit and review and make sure that, yes, you've covered all the details that they've required. You've covered all the points. You're not missing anything. Reduce the redundancies, make it clear, concise, and then make sure that you have all the documents that you need. Make sure that it's following the format that they requested. So that could be the final step. And so that's another part that I can offer. So there are different parts of the grant writing process that I can consult on. What do I need? I think for me, I need to get my name out there. I need clients that are interested in the services that I'm offering. As far as the real estate investing, I am looking for multifamilies. I'm looking for partnerships, individuals who would like to do that with me. Looking to grow my portfolio. And I am leaving my W-2 in June of this year of 2025. And it's been a process. I am a planner. I am very strategic. So everything I look out into the future. So this has been a 2-year process, actually probably 2.5 years now. I started my transition. So in January of 2024, I actually went to part-time and I started working 30 hours a week. Now I am entering my last 6 months, and this is where I am going to replace my W-2 income. So I'm ramping up my consulting. I'm ramping up my portfolio so that when I walk away from my W-2, I no longer have to rely on it. So that's my plan. For properties, I am not a great underwriter. That's something that I could be because I'm very detail oriented, but I need more work and experience. And so obviously I'm always looking for underwriters. I'm looking for deals that would work.
You and I will talk. I feel like I'm a great underwriter, so that we could that'd be a way we can work together.
Perfect.
So first, I want to publicly thank you for all the work you do in Owners Club. You and Bertie, all the Zooms and all of the work behind the scenes that you guys are doing. It is very much appreciated. I am so excited for Squad Up Summit this coming up, because I know you guys are doing a lot of hard work with that. So, kudos to you. I'm already going to tell you it's going to be a great event, and it hasn't even happened yet. So, with that note, Mano, do you have anything you want to say
No, it's awesome learning some of this stuff for you. I was here writing stuff down because something I was interested in. Looking into the future, I see maybe there's opportunities in this space. So thank you and much appreciated. Thank you, Luz.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much to both of you. And I am posting content on both my Instagram and my YouTube. My YouTube has been a little bit slower, but I'm going to start putting videos out there about grant writing. So anybody who feels like they would like to take a stab at grant writing or learn a little bit more, make sure to follow me on my Instagram at Luz Ramirez Consulting. My YouTube is the same. And both of those, my goal is that everyone can get a little bit more educated on the opportunities. If you want to go ahead and do it yourself, I'll be providing information on really what to look for, what you should be doing to hone in on finding the right grants, how to write grants, how to do it yourself. But if you need some help, I'm there. All right.
Awesome. Well, you beat me to it about bringing into your YouTubes and your social media, so I appreciate you kind of saved me from that. But again, I want to thank you. Congratulations early for getting out of your W-2. If God willing, by this time next year, I'll be in the same boat. But, there's got to be a lot of work between now and then. And I'll share that with you and whoever's watching this in the audience as I go through my journey as well. So thank you so much for taking the time to come talk with us, share your knowledge, share your journey, your good and your bad stories. And if I don't see you anytime soon on a Zoom, it'll be definitely in March at the Squat Up Summit.
Absolutely. Very excited about that. I look forward to seeing you both. Thank you.
Take care. Bye, everybody. We'll see you next time, fam.